My husband asked for a divorce while spreading butter on his toast. There was no yelling, no crying, just one calm sentence that ended 9 years of marriage. I don't want a wife who doesn't work, Daniel said as if he were returning a broken product. I stood by the kitchen island in my old robe, holding our daughter's bowl of cereal. I looked at the man I had helped build from unpaid bills and cheap borrowed suits into a successful 6-figure consultant. My name is Brielle Hartmann. I was 32 years old and I had become an expert at letting people underestimate me. Daniel believed I stayed home because I had nothing to contribute. He never wondered why my phone rang before sunrise, why I kept my office door locked, or how our mortgage had been paid off 3 years early. He only noticed the grocery shopping, school pickups, and comfortable clothes. Then he looked at me and said, "I've already met someone else." My chest tightened. "Someone?" I asked quietly. He looked away instead of answering. A second later, my best friend, Paige, walked out of our guest bathroom wearing Daniel's shirt. "Brielle," she whispered, "please don't make this harder than it has to be." For a long moment no one moved. The smell of fresh coffee filled the kitchen, but betrayal hung even heavier in the air. Paige stood near the hallway, nervously holding Daniel's shirt. She looked guilty but not guilty enough to walk away. I carefully placed my daughter's cereal bowl on the counter before my shaking hands could drop it. 9 years of marriage. 12 years of friendship. Destroyed in one quiet morning. Daniel finally spoke. "I wanted to tell you another way." I almost laughed. There was no gentle way to say what they had done. Paige stepped closer. "It wasn't planned." That excuse hurt even more than the affair itself. Affairs don't happen by accident. They grow through lies, secret meetings, hidden messages, and countless choices. I looked at Paige and remembered birthdays, hospital visits, late-night phone calls, and every promise she had ever made about loyalty. Then I turned back to Daniel. "What do you want?" He answered without hesitation. "I want to sell the house, share custody, and have a simple divorce." Simple. The word echoed through my mind because nothing about this was simple. Neither of them knew that for the past 5 years I had quietly built a successful remote consulting company under another business name. Neither of them knew I earned more than $500,000 a year. And neither of them knew that I had received an email earlier that morning, one that was about to change everything. "I need a minute," I said calmly. Before either of them could respond, I walked into my home office and locked the door. I wasn't leaving because I was falling apart. I needed privacy. I opened the email again. The subject line read, "Urgent financial review." Earlier that morning, my accountant had noticed unusual financial activity connected to Daniel. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Then I opened the attached reports. 3 credit cards, 2 personal loans, 1 private investment account. Every one of them carried balances I had never seen before. The total debt was over $200,000. My stomach sank. Daniel had always acted confident about money. He loved luxury watches, expensive vacations, and fancy business dinners that seemed designed more to impress people than to build relationships. I had always assumed his consulting business was paying for that lifestyle. Now I realized I had been completely wrong. The documents revealed a very different story. Daniel wasn't successful. He was drowning in debt. Even worse, several loan applications listed future income based on assets he didn't actually own. Those assets were tied to our marriage, property he clearly expected to receive after divorcing me. I leaned back in my chair as the truth came together. This wasn't just an affair. Daniel had been planning his escape for months, maybe years. He had built an entire financial plan around money he believed would soon belong to him. Just then my phone rang. The screen showed Paige's name. I answered. Her first words made my blood run cold. "Daniel doesn't know I found the storage unit." I tightened my grip on the phone. "What storage unit?" She lowered her voice. Traffic rushed in the background. I wasn't supposed to find it. My stomach twisted. Only minutes earlier she had stood beside Daniel. Now she sounded frightened. "Start talking," I said. She took a shaky breath. "A few months ago Daniel asked me to help move some boxes. He said they were old business files. Yesterday he asked me to go back and get a document. And there weren't any business records." I stood up so quickly my chair rolled backward. What was inside? She hesitated. Evidence. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Paige explained that the storage unit contained folders filled with contracts, property records, printed emails, financial papers, and photographs. Some belonged to Daniel. Others belonged to people she didn't know. Several files had my name on them. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because I think he's been lying to both of us." I wanted to hate her. Part of me already did. But the fear in her voice sounded real. Then she said something that changed everything. There was a notebook. My throat tightened. What notebook? The one where Daniel wrote out his entire divorce plan. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. "And Brielle?" She paused. "He wrote that after the divorce he'd make sure you were left with absolutely nothing." I couldn't answer. One question kept repeating in my mind. How long had he been planning this? Not the affair. Not even the divorce. My complete destruction. That evening, Paige met me at a busy coffee shop across town. Neither of us trusted Daniel enough to meet anywhere he might recognize. Without a word, she slid a small key across the table. "Storage Unit 417. I looked at it. "You kept the key?" I made a copy. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, she looked less like the woman who betrayed me and more like someone caught in the same trap. An hour later, I unlocked the storage unit. Boxes lined every wall. Each one was carefully labeled in Daniel's handwriting. I opened the nearest folder. My stomach turned. Inside were screenshots of private conversations, financial records, legal research, detailed schedules, and carefully organized plans. Then I found the notebook. Every page described another step. Convince Brielle she's financially dependent. Push for a quick settlement. Hide personal debt. Secure marital assets. Marry Paige. Rebuild reputation. My hands shook as I read. This wasn't a man making emotional decisions. This was someone carrying out a carefully planned scheme. Then I reached the last page. One sentence was written across the bottom. "Never let Brielle discover the Mercer account." I stared at those words. Mercer account? I had never heard that name in 9 years of marriage. I photographed every page, every receipt, and every document before placing everything back exactly as I had found it. Then I called my accountant. The moment I mentioned Mercer, he fell silent. After a long pause, he asked quietly, "Brielle, where did you hear that name? Please tell me." Another silence. Then the truth came out. Mercer isn't a bank. It's a private investment partnership with very limited membership. My heart sank. Daniel listed it as one of his future assets on several financial disclosures. "There's just one problem," my accountant continued. "He has no legal right to own any part of it." Minutes later, he emailed me the records. They showed forged signatures, inflated asset values, false ownership claims. Daniel hadn't only hidden his debts. He had submitted false financial information to secure loans and gain the trust of investors. The fraud was far bigger than I had imagined. This was no longer just about my marriage. It was much bigger than Paige. Then another email arrived. This one came from an attorney. Attached was an official legal notice. A formal investigation had already begun. Someone else had discovered serious financial irregularities. At the bottom of the notice was a name I recognized immediately. Daniel's biggest client. They wanted answers. I read the document 3 times before the reality finally sank in. Daniel wasn't just heading toward an ugly divorce. His entire career was about to collapse. His largest client was known for strict financial standards and complete transparency. If they had opened an investigation, they already had enough evidence to believe something was seriously wrong. I immediately forwarded every photo from the storage unit to my attorney. Every document. Every handwritten note. Every page of Daniel's notebook. Nothing changed. Nothing exaggerated. Only the truth. Less than an hour later, my attorney called. "Brielle," he said firmly, "do not warn Daniel." I wasn't planning to. "Good," he replied. "Because that notebook changes everything." For weeks, Daniel had been pushing me to sign a quick divorce settlement. He wanted mediation, limited financial disclosures, and a fast division of our assets. Now I knew exactly why. A full financial investigation would expose everything he had been hiding. The next morning, he showed up at the house carrying a bouquet of flowers. It was a good performance. Almost. He sat across from me at the same kitchen table where our marriage had begun to fall apart. Let's handle this peacefully, he said. I looked at him without saying a word. Then I slid a photocopy of one page from his notebook across the table. The moment he saw it, the color drained from his face. His hand stopped halfway to the paper. For the first time in all the years I had known him, Daniel looked truly afraid. Before either of us spoke again, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and quietly whispered, "Lawyers." With trembling hands he answered the call. I watched his confidence disappear one sentence at a time. The man who had always believed he controlled every situation could barely speak. His biggest client had ended their contract. The investigation was moving forward. His loans were being reviewed. His financial statements were under investigation. Everything he had built on lies was beginning to collapse. When the call ended, he looked at me. Not with pride. Not with anger. But with fear. "Brielle," he said quietly, "we can fix this." The irony was almost unbelievable. Only weeks earlier he had called me useless because he believed I didn't work. He never asked what I actually did. He never cared enough to find out. After he left, my attorney completed the divorce process. The notebook, the hidden debts, and the false financial records completely changed the negotiations. Instead of walking away with valuable assets, Daniel walked away carrying the consequences of his own choices. Paige ended her relationship with him before the divorce was finalized. Later she reached out to apologize. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She only accepted responsibility for what she had done. I accepted her apology, but I didn't rebuild the friendship. Some relationships can't be repaired. They become lessons instead. 1 year later, my consulting business was stronger than ever. My daughter was happy and thriving. I was still living in my home. Most importantly, I had found peace again. In the end, the greatest victory wasn't watching Daniel lose everything. It was realizing that I had never needed him to succeed.